What's up, guys? In this video, we are going to be taking a look at the brand new DC Multiverse figure from the McFarlane toy line, and it's a big one. The DC Classic Darkseid Mega Figure. This is going to be fun. Let's get into it. In this video, we're going to go over three topics: presentation, articulation, and whether or not this figure is something that you should pick up for your collection or that you should pass on. First, let's talk about presentation. In front of us, we have the standard DC Multiverse McFarlane toy line box with the window on the front, displaying the figure and the accessories that he comes with on the inside, which, by the way, to see a mega figure come with accessories is very exciting. I'm hoping that this is the direction that the McFarlane Toy Company is wanting to go now with these mega figure releases, because most of their mega figures in the past did not come with accessories. I know that there was a couple that did, but I would like to see all of them coming with accessories from this point forward, so this is a really good step in the right direction. Here on the bottom, we have the DC Multiverse logo and the name of the figure underneath that, Darkseid. Up here in the right-hand corner, it says 12+. Turning the box to the side, we have the DC Multiverse logo, the name of the figure, and DC Classic. Here on the back, we have some really cool classic artwork of Darkseid using his powers. This is very, very cool. Up here in the top right-hand corner, we have the McFarlane Toys logo, and up in the left-hand corner, it says we have 22 moving parts with this figure. Here's the other side of the box, with more of the same, with the logo and the name. And here's the bottom of the box with the barcode, if any of you guys are interested in that. So far, for the in-box presentation on this figure, this is exactly what I would expect from the DC Multiverse McFarlane Toy Line Company. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to opening this thing up and getting him out of the box. Okay, now that we have the figure out of the box, let's get our first 360 view of him and talk about him a little bit. As far as detail goes, this figure is very visually pleasing, and we will get a closer look at him here in a little bit. I will say that I'm noticing that there's a very big similarity between the arms on this figure and the arms on the Mongol mega figure that was released a while back, so I do believe the arms are reused. But most of this figure appears to be relatively new. That head sculpt with the beams coming out of the eyes, very classic Darkseid, very cool. We all know that when it comes to villainy, this figure basically takes the cake in the DC Multiverse. This guy was one of the big bads of the big bads, and he caused a lot of problems for Superman and most of the Justice League. So I'm very happy to have a classic looking version of this figure. I will say when he was first announced and we got to see what he looks like, I was a little iffy about him, but now that I have him here, I do like what he looks like. Before we go any further, let's take a look at the accessories that this guy came with. Up first, for the accessories, let's get the boring stuff out of the way. He came with a black DC peg stand, which, once you've seen one of these, you've basically seen them all. Unless you get a collector's edition, which has the different stamp on it. But other than that, same puck that we're used to getting. Now, let's take a look at his new head sculpt. Wow. Very cool. Lots of detail. Look at that. That is a very neat looking head sculpt. Very happy with that. And then he came with 2 swap out hands, one of which has a pointer finger, which is right here. I told you not to do that. Anyways, goofing around aside, the other hand is closed fist. Pretty neat. And then here's the card that Darkseid came with. Here's the back of the card with the data file. If you guys would like to pause the video now and read that. Okay, that is all for the accessories that this figure came with. Before we go any further though, if you guys have been watching the videos and you're liking the content, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button and become a part of the Collected King family. And hit that bell for more notifications so you guys can get notified every time we upload new content. And if you don't mind doing so, smash that like button and leave a comment down below to let me know if this figure is something you guys are excited about and that you want to add to your collection, or if it's something you're going to pass on. Doing all these things greatly helps out the channel. Thank you. Now that we have the figure back in front of us, let's go ahead and get that up close look at Darkseid. Amazing detail in the head sculpt here. Once again, I love the beams coming out of his eyes. Very cool. Got the D on his chest here. Love the detail here in the arms, which, like I said earlier, I do believe these arms are reused from the Mongol Mega figure, but that's okay because they definitely work on Darkseid. The chest piece might also be a reuse. I'm not entirely certain, but it looks a little familiar. But overall, I do like the detail on this figure. He has a wired cape. It's a little more flimsy than the other wired capes from the other figures. This one has a hard time wanting to stay down, but that's okay. It's still pretty cool that we got a wired cape with him. Very pleasing to the eyes. This concludes the presentation portion of this video. It is at this point that I go ahead and give my rating. And the way that I do my rating on these figures for presentation is on a scale of 1 to 10. I do the same thing for articulation later in the video. So let's go ahead and give this figure a rating for presentation. I'm going to go ahead and give this Darkseid figure an 8.0 out of 10. The presentation is right on point for what I would expect from the DC Multiverse McFarlane toy line figures. Very, very nice. Now that we're done with presentation, let's go ahead and move on to articulation. Before we dive into the articulation, I would just like to go ahead and say that I have actually seen another review done on this figure, and that person who was doing the review did have a lot of problems with the articulation. Let's see if we have the same issues. Starting with his head. So for side to side motion, that's it. That's all we got. As far as pushing it back, that's as far back as it'll go. Looks down pretty good. As far as the shoulders go, I mean, pretty good range of motion there. This one's a little more stiff, but that's okay. Still not bad. He's on a single jointed elbow. He has double jointed knees. Normal ankles, not on a ball joint, so that's nice. He does have toe articulation, which is incredibly stiff. Does not want to move at all. The legs are also extremely stiff. All right. He does not want to do the splits. But I plan on just standing this guy on my Superman shelf. So, I mean, he will be good for that. But I'm getting the same kind of issues here. Pretty stiff. He has virtually no articulation in the torso area. Wrist. Nice mobility there in the wrist. But I am having the same issues with the articulation on this figure that I have seen others have. So that concludes the articulation part. I'm going to go ahead and give my rating on the articulation. I would say, unfortunately, a 4.2 out of 10 for the rating on articulation. This guy is pretty stiff, but that doesn't take away from how well he looks. The presentation part definitely is the breadwinner in this review. This is a very cool looking mega figure. It would be nice if his articulation was a little bit better, but it's okay. So once again, to recap, for presentation, we gave him an 8.0 out of 10, and for articulation, he received a 4.2 due to how stiff he is. Let's go ahead and see if we can't get him in a different pose and talk about him a little bit more. Here I've set up a fun little fight scene for you guys. I've gotten Darkseid into a power pose. I swapped out one of his hands for a closed fist to make it look like he's building power, getting ready to shoot his beams at Superman. This is actually one of my favorite Superman figures in my collection. Might possibly be the favorite out of my collection. Superman here is attempting to stop Darkseid in his reign of terror. But will Superman be successful? I don't know, because Darkseid is one bad foe. But we all know that Superman seems to somehow always find a way. Once again, I thought this was a cool little scene. As we're getting a final 360 view of the figure, let's talk about whether or not this figure is something you should pick up or pass on. If you guys have been waiting for a good representation of the DC Classic version of Darkseid, then I would say absolutely 100% yes. I am very happy to add this figure to my collection. Even though he has glaring articulation problems, I still like the representation of this figure. He's very cool to look at, and I think he's going to look great on one of my shelves for sure. If you already have a couple of Darkseid figures, because McFarlane did release a couple of movie accurate figures, an armored version and an unarmored version, then I guess you could pass on him. But I think if you guys don't pick this figure up, you will regret it. He's a very, very good representation of Darkseid. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to be here with me as we did a review on this awesome new mega figure. Until next time, never stop collecting.